Throughout the Galactic Concord, the tale of Terrans was relegated to campfire stories and children's fables. Most species in the 27 System Alliance considered humans nothing more than mythological beings, evolutionary impossibilities that couldn't possibly exist. Commander Veltrix Olorium of the Fedran Science Directive adjusted her ocular membranes as she studied the ancient text. As the foremost xenoarchaeologist in the quadrant, she had dedicated her 400-cycle career to studying what others dismissed as fiction. Commander, we've analyzed the radiation signatures from the abandoned outpost, Lieutenant Draskell reported, his crystalline exoskeleton refracting the dim light of the research vessel. The decay patterns match exactly what your hypothesis predicted. Veltrix's tendrils quivered with excitement. Then the legend spoke truth. This was a human military installation. According to fragmentary records, humans had once populated this sector before a catastrophic war, allegedly against the now-extinct Mavorians, forced their retreat to an unknown region beyond the Cygnus Void. For 3,000 cycles, no trace of humanity had been detected. Most believed they had annihilated themselves or simply never existed. Yet the evidence before Veltrix was undeniable. The outpost's architecture defied conventional physics, designed for bipedal beings with remarkable environmental adaptations. What truly fascinated her were the weapon signatures. If the calculations were correct, human weaponry had operated at energy outputs that modern Concord science deemed theoretically impossible. "We should inform the High Council," Draskell suggested, mandibles clicking nervously. "And have my funding revoked?" Veltrix retorted, "They've declared my research delusional 3 times already. No, we need irrefutable proof." Their conversation was interrupted by a blaring alarm. Ship-wide emergency protocols activated as Senior Officer Tholix burst onto the command deck, his normally pale skin flushed purple with alarm. Unknown vessels detected approaching from the void. Massive energy signatures, nothing like we've ever recorded. The view screen flickered to life, revealing what at first appeared to be a small moon emerging from the darkness between stars. As magnification increased, the silhouette resolved into an unmistakable artificial structure, a warship of impossible proportions. "That can't be," Draskell whispered. But Veltrix knew. The vessel matched perfectly the descriptions from ancient texts, the legendary dreadnoughts of the Terran Expeditionary Force. The behemoth was soon joined by others. 5, then 12, then 30 massive ships, each displaying power readings that overwhelmed the research vessel sensors. "Open communications," Veltrix ordered, her voice barely audible. Before the communications officer could comply, every console on the research vessel illuminated simultaneously. A deep, resonant voice filled the command center, speaking in perfect Fedran. "This is Admiral Rysik Adastran of the United Terran Confederation. You have entered protected space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." The legend had returned. Humanity was no myth, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Concord's High Council chamber erupted into chaos upon receiving Veltrix's transmission. The 17 elder species that governed interstellar affairs had never faced such a paradigm shift. A mythological race materializing with technology that outclassed their most advanced systems by centuries. High Counselor Paxter, representing the ancient Aculian Republic, slammed his gnarled appendage against the circular table. "Impossible! The Terran vessels would have triggered our deep space monitoring network. Unless," Veltrix countered via holographic projection, "they possess the phasing technology described in the Mavorian archives, the same technology your esteemed council dismissed as fanciful imagination." Standing beside Admiral Adastran on the bridge of the UTS Indomitable, Commodore Eloan Trevain watched the alien scientists with calculated interest. After centuries of self-imposed isolation beyond the void, humanity had finally decided to re-emerge. The decision hadn't been made lightly, not after what happened during the Mavorian Extinction War. "They're afraid," Adastran observed, his weathered face illuminated by holographic displays. At 63 standard years, he was considered young for an admiral, but the resurrection of the 7th Fleet had required officers willing to make difficult decisions. "They should be," Eloan replied, recalling her historical training. The last time humanity interacted with the galactic community we were forced to unleash the Nova Protocol. What the Concorde species couldn't know, was that humanity hadn't retreated in defeat as their legends suggested. They had withdrawn in shame after the devastation their weapons had caused. The Mavorians had given them no choice, threatening Earth itself with biological weapons that would have rendered their homeworld uninhabitable. The resulting conflict had fractured space-time in 3 sectors and completely annihilated the aggressive Mavorian Empire. Now, 3,000 years later, humans had returned not seeking conquest, but driven by necessity. The anomalies detected at the edge of Terran space threatened all sentient life. Rifts caused by the ancient war were expanding, consuming entire star systems. Admiral, Communications Officer Lysander reported, the Concorde representatives are requesting a delegation meet with their High Council. Adastran nodded. Inform Commodore Trevaine's team to prepare for diplomatic engagement and maintain battle readiness. We remember what happened last time we trusted alien hospitality. The diplomatic shuttle departed the indomitable 12 hours later. As Aloan led her team toward the Concorde's massive orbital station, she couldn't help but admire the elegant construction, a testament to cooperative engineering among disparate species. The reception chamber hushed as the human delegation entered. Most aliens had never seen humans outside of artistic interpretations in ancient texts. Some recoiled at their appearance. Others leaned forward in fascination. High Counselor Paxter spoke first. For millennia, we believed your kind extinct, if you existed at all. Yet here you stand, commanding vessels that defy our understanding of physics. Why reveal yourselves now? Aloan stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. Because the wounds our war inflicted upon space-time are reopening. The dimensional rifts are expanding. Within 50 years, they will reach your core worlds. Within a century, this entire galactic arm will be uninhabitable. She activated a holographic projection showing the spreading anomalies. We've spent 3,000 years developing technology to seal these rifts permanently, but we cannot do it alone. As the implications settled over the assembly, a low hum of worried conversations filled the chamber. The myth had returned bearing apocalyptic news, and perhaps their only salvation. The Concorde scientists stared in horrified fascination as the dimensional rift expanded before their eyes. The massive tear in reality swallowed the uninhabited planet whole, leaving nothing but empty space where a world had existed moments before. Now do you understand the urgency? Fleet Admiral Adastran's voice carried across the observation deck of the UTS Indomitable. This is what happens when a rift reaches maturity. 6 months had passed since humanity's return from isolation. The initial fear and disbelief had given way to a fragile cooperation as the evidence became undeniable. The rifts were expanding exponentially. Cosmic wounds from a war most had considered mythological. Veltrix Olorium, now appointed as the Concorde's chief liaison to the Terran fleet, flexed her tendrils anxiously. Your projections indicated we had decades. We were wrong, Commodore Aloan admitted. The rifts are accelerating faster than our models predicted. We have 18 months at most before critical systems begin failing across your territory. The massive project they had undertaken was unprecedented in galactic history. 36 human warships had been retrofitted with specialized equipment, reality anchors that could theoretically seal the rifts permanently. But each ship could only deploy a single anchor, and their scans had identified 43 expanding tears in the fabric of spacetime. High Counselor Paxter's holographic image flickered as he addressed the gathered commanders. The Concorde has approved emergency conscription of all available vessels. We can modify 7 of our capital ships to carry your technology. Still not enough. They needed more ships, more anchors, more time. There is another option, Admiral Adastran said quietly. All eyes turned to him. The Void Hammer. Gasps echoed from the human officers. The Void Hammer was humanity's darkest secret, a weapon developed during the final days of the Mavorian War, but never deployed. It could theoretically collapse all rifts simultaneously by creating a controlled cascade of opposing dimensional forces. The simulations show a 96% chance of success, Adastran continued. But the remaining 4%, complete dimensional collapse across 3 sectors, Aloan finished, including Earth and the Concorde homeworlds. Silence fell across the chamber as the implications sank in. It would be the ultimate gamble, risking everything to save everything. 3 days later, the combined human Concord fleet assembled at the largest rift. The massive tear in reality pulsed with unnatural energies, spreading visibly even as they watched. At its current rate, it would engulf the nearest inhabited system within weeks. Aboard the Indomitable, Adastran stood before the crew who had followed him from beyond the void. 3,000 years ago, our ancestors made a terrible choice that saved our species but created this danger. Today, we have a chance to make it right. The Void Hammer, a deceptively small device, was loaded into the flagship's main deployment bay. If successful, it would trigger a chain reaction through quantum entanglement, affecting all rifts simultaneously. All ships maintain position, Adastran ordered. Dimensional shielding at maximum. As the final countdown began, Veltrix approached Alolan on the bridge. The ancient texts speak of human courage, but they failed to capture its true nature, she said. Regardless of today's outcome, the legend of humanity will forever be changed in our histories. Alolan smiled grimly. Let's hope we're all alive to read those histories. Deployment in 3, 2, 1, the Void Hammer launched, a small projectile hurtling toward the heart of the dimensional wound. As it made contact, there was no explosion, no dramatic flash, only a ripple of distortion that spread outward like concentric rings in water. For one terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then sensors began reporting across all channels. Rift stabilization at 20%, 45%, 63%. The tear in space-time began to shrink, its ragged edges knitting together as fundamental forces reasserted themselves. Similar reports flooded in from observation posts throughout the galaxy. One by one, the rifts were closing. It's working, Veltrix exclaimed, her scientific discipline momentarily forgotten in the excitement. Then disaster struck. The Indomitable shuddered violently as alarms blared across every deck. Dimensional feedback, shouted the science officer. The rifts are closing, but the process is creating a new instability centered on our position. Adastran's face hardened as he studied the readings. Evacuate all non-essential personnel to the support vessels. Prepare for emergency jump protocols. The Indomitable can't outrun this, Alolan said quietly. Someone has to remain to stabilize the reaction. The Admiral nodded slowly. I know. Understanding passed between them. One ship would need to stay behind. A final sacrifice to ensure the rifts closed completely. As evacuation orders spread through the massive warship, Adastran addressed the combined fleet. All vessels withdraw to minimum safe distance. The Indomitable will complete the mission. Despite protests from both human and alien commanders, the fleet began pulling back, leaving the massive flagship alone before the collapsing rift. On the bridge, a skeleton crew remained, volunteers all. Adastran took his command chair for the final time. Redirect all power to the dimensional stabilizers, he ordered. Let's make this count. The Indomitable's massive engines glowed with unnatural brilliance as they channeled energy directly into the fabric of reality itself, guiding the rift's closure like a surgeon suturing a wound. Across the galaxy, the rifts sealed completely, leaving healthy space-time in their wake. 3,000 years of cosmic damage, healed in a single day. As the final rift closed, the Indomitable flared brightly, a miniature sun visible across light years, before disappearing in a final flash of dimensional energy. 3 weeks later, representatives from every Concord world gathered for an unprecedented ceremony. At its center stood a monument, a perfect replica of the Indomitable, carved from indestructible materials gathered from every member world. Veltrix Olorium, now the newly appointed ambassador to Earth, addressed the assembly. For millennia, humans were just legends in our stories, myths of beings with impossible abilities and terrifying power. Today, we know the truth. They were not myths but saviors, waiting beyond the void for the moment when they would be needed most. Commodore Alolan Trevane, now Fleet Admiral of the combined Human Concord Defense Forces, placed a ceremonial wreath at the monument's base. The legends were wrong, she said. We weren't demons or gods. We were simply a species trying to make right what we once did wrong. As the ceremony concluded, news arrived from the Dimensional Research Team. Strange readings at the site of the Indomitable's last stand. Not a rift, but something else. A stable pocket dimension where none should exist. And emanating from within it, a faint, encoded signal that contained just 3 words. We are here. The legend would continue.